Hello everybody, it's Steven from Close on Sunday Podcast. I thought today, since we don't have a podcast, I would instead do a brief video about how we make our podcast and maybe give some information for anybody out there who might want to start their own someday. So that's what I'm going to do. So I recently heard it said that having a podcast is this generation's I'm a photographer. So basically what that means is that this is a very niche hobby right now. Lots of podcasts out there available. So first things first, when creating a podcast is deciding what you want it to be about. Now there's a lot of options there. You can talk about movies. You can do like our friends at Oh Gosh Let's Read. Check them out at Simplecast. And you can talk about books, or you can do the lazy route like we've done and just say, hey, we have fun conversations. Maybe other people will listen to them and just do that. The thing is, though, you want to kind of have a starting point. You want to kind of have that identity figured out beforehand before you do anything else. After you've picked a topic, the next thing to do is to figure out who you're going to podcast with. So you want to put together a group of people, or if you're going solo, then solo, and you want to get that group down together and start talking about the vision you have for your idea. And then of course you want to have a name, something snappy. Like I said, in a generation like now where there are so many podcasts available, you want to have something that's, unique to you, but also specific enough that people can look for it. And that's kind of the next big thing. Once you've got your name and your group, and preferably a place where you can go, and that can be anywhere. Once you have your place, you got to decide on your tech. So this is something that's kind of up to you. It depends on how much you want to do and how much you want to invest, because there are a lot of different cost alternatives when it comes to this. So when we first started out, we didn't really have anything that we could use. We wanted to just sort of get a start, so we recorded everything on the voice recorder on my phone. And that works out okay. Sound quality's not great, and we didn't have any editing software, so anything that was in there was just in there. But as we've gone on, we've kind of been able to do more. We sort of moved up our tech. So you can think about microphones. What we have here is a Blue brand Snowball microphone, which we got from Taylor's older brother. That thing's been a boon. And it just comes with this cord, and you can plug it right into your USB and record it directly to the computer. So you don't have to worry about a sound mixer or anything like that. If you have the budget to get a sound mixer, that's probably preferred, because you can actually, fiddle around with different people's levels and stuff like that. If you can actually get a microphone a person, that's even more ideal, because you can mix those sounds to an even greater degree and get the best sound mix possible. That's kind of the first thing. You want to have some means of recording your audio, of course. If you're doing a video podcast, same thing. It's just kind of a higher level of entry, because cameras tend to be a lot more expensive than microphones. So if you've moved past the point of using your phone and you have an actual microphone, the next thing is figuring out how you want to host your podcast. So there's a lot of different options for this. The way that we originally did it, we decided to set up our own website. So there are a lot of hosting websites. You can do SoundCloud, you can do Simplecast. A lot of those, though, they might have a free entry level, but if you want to start storing more and more files, and most podcasts range from, half an hour to an hour, then you have to actually pay subscription to do that. So if you don't want to pay to do that, there are a couple of other options. Another option is archive.org, and it's a place where you can host sound files, any sorts of things like that. You just upload them there, and then you can download them from there as well. So we upload them to Archive, host them on our website, and that's how we've been doing it for the last little while now. If you also are doing iTunes, there's a lot of online tutorials about how to set up an RSS feed with a website or a Simplecast. Just kind of figure out right at the beginning how much you decide you want to spend on this sort of thing. If you want it to be, something you're doing mostly for free, which is how we've been doing it for almost 100 episodes, then those are some pretty good options to do that. And then you can just set up your own website. What we do is we just set up a website through Blogger, because it's all through one Google account, and then it only costs us $12 a year for our domain. So we have closonsundaypodcast.com at very low cost. One other thing to consider if you were going to be doing something above just doing a phone recording and uploading that directly is sound mixing. So if you decide that you want to have multiple microphones, or even just one, but you want to have intro and outro music as we do, or you want to put in bleeps over certain words as we do, then those are some things you have to consider, and that's something where the cost starts to become kind of a problem. So I do all of my editing through Adobe Audition. If you can't do that, there are a couple of cheaper options. If you have a Mac, you can always use GarageBand. It's a pretty good program. You can also download some sort of, iffy kind of programs on the internet here and there. I don't know of any in particular that are free that I trust necessarily, but if you have any ideas, please leave those in the comments below. But there's also Acoustica Mixcraft, which is not terribly expensive. You can get that on your device as well. And there are even some apps that you can download. So if you do record it on your phone and you still want to do some small amounts of editing, you could even get an app on your phone and do it that way. The next thing is to figure out a release schedule. So, kind of think of a day. This is sort of a thing that's kind of new to our age with social media. You have to kind of consider when you place out information, when you post links so that they don't get buried. Doing a little bit of research about peak times on certain social media platforms might be kind of helpful for you to figure out when you can post it so it doesn't just get eaten alive by a bunch of other people's posts. Having a concrete and set release schedule is really helpful to have maintained listening, the maintained listener base. So if you want to make sure that people are listening, every time, having it come out the same day of the week or the same, day of the month and, roughly around the same time period can be really helpful for that sort of thing. So the next step is going to be planning each week's content, so you can do this a little ways in advance, but of course it depends greatly on what your particular focus and topic is. So for something like our podcast, the very first step to planning a podcast like ours, which is very anecdotal, just conversation, is, just observing things around you. You have to keep your eyes open, you have to observe, people watch, listen, that sort of thing. Another thing that we like to do is step out of our comfort zone as often as possible because that makes, in our opinion, for some of the best stories. If you're doing something that's a little bit more traditional, if you're discussing news or media or something like that, that doesn't necessarily not apply there because that's a double negative. But basically the idea is, if you're doing movie reviews or book reviews or talking about books, don't always just go with things that you already know you're going to like. Go out of your comfort zone, go to, independent places, go to strange places you wouldn't normally go, because that just sort of brings a lot more richness and quality to something, even if it's something, stupid conversations like we do. The last thing, and probably the biggest thing in this day and age, is promotion. So there are a lot of different ways you can do this. If you look at something like our podcast, we have a Facebook page. I tweet about it every week on my personal Twitter. I have a Reddit account that I post about every single week. We have our own personal website, as I said, and then we also post about it on our personal Facebook pages. So we do as much as we can to get it out there. Another thing is collaboration. Pretty much all web creators will tell you the same thing. Collaborating with other people is a great way to get both of you out there a little bit further to different audiences. And the idea behind that is, of course, to help out others, but of course also to help out yourself a little bit. So promoting yourself by promoting others is a great way to sort of create a community of people that can work together on this kind of thing. Consider logos, consider Facebook pages. Think about how often you want to post. Don't post too much, but don't post too little. You don't want people to forget about you, but you don't want them to unfollow you because you are spamming their newsfeed. Consider all the different social media platforms that are available to you as well. So that's kind of a primer into podcasting, and at least the way that we do it. There are a lot of various ways you can do this, and again, it has a lot to do with budget and preference, topic, that kind of thing, how you want to do it. But that's just kind of a glimpse into how we run our podcast at Closed on Sunday, and just kind of, maybe that gave you some ideas of what you can do. I just really want to say that it's great running a podcast every week. We love getting together, and thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast and who watches our videos and has been supportive of us in these last almost 2 years that we've been doing this, coming up on our 100th episode. Hopefully this was kind of enlightening for you, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe or throw us a like or don't, whatever. But if you have any questions, let me know. And if you want to see anything in more detail, I can get some screen capture going on my PC and kind of show a little bit in greater detail how we upload our podcasts and stuff, if that's something that's a demand. Let me know about that or any other questions you have about podcast hosting, or if you're interested in doing any kind of collaboration with us, let me know about that as well. And thanks everybody so much, and we'll see you next Sunday with the podcast. Bye!